All right, I'm Amy Waller, and I am going to do a brief overview and demo of making Egyptian faience.
Okay.
So Egyptian faience, a lot of potters know it by Egyptian paste, but it's by everybody else in the world, it is called Egyptian faience or Egyptian faience. The name comes from when Europeans went to Egypt in the 19th century. They saw little scarabs and things like that, and there are two hypotheses. One is that they thought that it looked like pottery from Faience in Italy. That seems less likely to me than the other thing, which is that they called all pottery faience, so like chinaware or something like that. And it was sometimes even called Egyptian porcelain. So it has actually been called by many different names. It can be very confusing when you're looking at the history of it. But I would say most people in the world do call it Egyptian faience, which is what I will call it. It is the earliest invention of glaze. It was probably invented in Mesopotamia about 7,000 years ago. And it is mostly silica. The thinking is that before it was made, they were carving like steatite or soapstone, and then firing it, and that would make it harder. It was a very soft stone. And then at some point they started glazing it and also firing it. And then at some point they figured out that they could grind up quartz or sand and pulverize it, and then make a paste out of it, and they could make more things, more complicated things more easily, and then they would fire them. So there are three types of Egyptian faience. One is what most potters think of as Egyptian paste, which is self-glazing, consists mostly of silica, sodium, and calcium. So you make up a paste, and you make whatever you're going to make, usually pretty small things, and you let them dry. And as they dry, the sodium in the paste comes to the surface and forms a glaze. And that looks like this.
And those have no colorant in them then?
No, these do have colorant.
Okay.
So this is copper.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yeah.
And this is chrome.
And they're unfired.
They're unfired. So like the scum that you see on the top of it
is the sodium.
Is the sodium.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then these are the pieces that you make. These are the finished
pieces.
These
are finished. These are all different. These are all different recipes.
Oh, wow.
Like percentages of
To all different kinds of things. What really interests me is how they made it in ancient times.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what inspires me.
Wow.
So there's a finished piece.
Beautiful.
Gosh.
Yeah. And then you push them into a mold or something?
I do, and that's what I'm going to show.
Okay, fantastic. Fantastic. I didn't mean to get ahead of you there.
So except for these two down here, these are all made with the efflorescence glazing. So it's all where the sodium is inside the paste and it comes to the surface. But there are two other types of Egyptian faience. One is called cementation glazing, which to me is like the most fascinating type of Egyptian faience. It's actually known to be made in Iran. And with this, it's also mostly silica, but instead of the sodium being in the paste, they put it in containers full of glazed powder, and then they fire the containers, and then after the firing, the powder is still like powdery and removes very easily from the small items that they've made, and it's glazed.
Wow.
And this was sort of rediscovered by Westerners in the late 60s. There was a guy traveling around, a researcher traveling around Iran, and he saw these bead makers, mostly bead makers, and they were very secretive, did not want to reveal how they were making these things. But his daughter was with him. His daughter was a potter, and she observed what they were doing and figured it out. And when they came back, they were able to replicate how it was done. And that's how that got...
Industrial espionage is
Yes.
what we have there.
And they're still making them. There's actually a really great Facebook page with a donkey bead maker in Iran, and they post awesome photos of how it's made. It's
Oh, wow. Very cool.
What? Donkey beads. They're called donkey beads. They're you've probably seen them. They're like round-shaped, sort of like rough round, and they're sort of the beautiful, like glossier than this. They're gorgeous. They're amazing. The last type of Egyptian faience is just regular, sort of what I think of as sort of regular pottery glazing, where you would dip something in a glaze slurry or paint it on. And they sometimes use more than one method at a time. So that's kind of a brief history of Egyptian faience. Now I'm just going to do a real brief demo of making just a simple pendant, making the paste and then making a simple pendant. So it's very similar to mixing up a glaze. You want to get your dry ingredients together. First thing you want to do is put on a respirator or a mask, so I'm going to kind of skip that part. This is a recipe that I like a lot. It has 85% silica. The sodium is baking soda, Arm & Hammer baking soda. So I mix up all the ingredients in a clear plastic jar. This has copper oxide in it, and I just shake it till I can kind of visually see that the copper has dispersed and the color is pretty well mixed in. I don't sieve it. Some people do sieve, but I don't. And then when it's ready to mix up, I mix up small amounts at a time. You don't really want it. You want to keep it dry because the sodium is soluble, and so you don't want to store it for any long period of time because it can change the mixture. So when I'm ready to mix it up, I use just a little bit of water. I use an ear aspirator so I can use very small amounts of water. You want to use a non-porous surface. Couple different ways to mix up the glaze. I use a flat surface. Some people do it in a bowl. Some people do it in a baggie, like a plastic bag, and kind of mix it with their hands. This is just what I like the best. So I put a little bit of water in, add a little bit of powder, let it absorb, and then just keep mixing until it's the consistency that I'm looking for. It is kind of like building a sandcastle. It's kind of hard to tell when it's the right consistency, and you might think it's too dry, and then you pick it up and it's much wetter than you thought it was. But you can sort of keep adding powder or water as you need. So here's some paste that I've already mixed up.
Excellent. Wow.
Cooking shows.
So it's not plastic at all because it's mostly silica. This is actually a little bit too dry now. I add a little bit of water. And then just to make a real simple pendant or bead, a large bead, I use bisqueware molds or stamps. You don't want to use plaster because it will absorb the sodium and not be usable for very long. So just a little bit more. Kind of want to make sure it doesn't have any
Will the clay absorb
creases.
it eventually?
It will eventually, but not as quickly as plaster. Just put it down.
Yeah.
So what I like about this particular paste, it takes detail pretty well. So if I were making a pendant, I would go ahead and cut it out to the shape that I want it now.
What are those little things?
So
Just cutters. There are a wide variety of cutters in the world.
start with cookies.
Yeah. Miniature
But
cutters.
cookies are usually like big. Those are like little mini
People.
chocolate. And those are
Oh.
cutters.
Let's see the cutters. Oh, there's a lot of cutters. Oh my
That
God.
is a small sampling of cutters.
Oh yeah, I have some of these.
So then I want to go, if I want to put a hole in, I want to go ahead and do that now. I use wooden toothpicks because this stuff will crack really easily. Put a little bit of water on the end so it keeps it a little bit moist. Go ahead and add the hole. Like that.
Wow.
I put it on a small piece of paper so that I can move it pretty easily. To dry it, I put it on, I have an old sieve.
Look at you. God, you got this figured out.
So put it on there. When it's a little bit drier, I would go ahead and take the paper off. It's a little bit too wet for that right now. But then I want it to be able to dry on all sides because you want the glaze to be able to come out on all
I
sides.
see. And then you fire them on a...
On a nichrome wire.
Okay, I see.
Wow.
And this particular paste I fire at cone 06.
Okay.